Hola chicos, soy señorita Schaefer y hoy vamos a hablar de la gramática de capítulo 3b, the plurals of adjectives. This is on page 156 of your textbooks if you want to find it there. The main question that I want you to be thinking about as you work through today's lesson is how do we describe plural nouns? So please go ahead and write that at the top of your notes. Make sure you leave some room where you can answer. And remember that to describe nouns, the part of speech that describes nouns are adjectives. So if you want to go ahead and write that down, you can. And we're going to talk about how we use adjectives to describe plural nouns. You've learned before about how adjectives have to agree with nouns. What you've already learned about is whether they are masculine or feminine. So for example, we would say, ella es guapa. She is good looking. But we would say, él es guapo. He is good looking. That adjective must agree in gender with what it is describing. The second point is what we're going to learn about today. Adjectives must also agree with nouns, depending whether they are singular or plural. We're going to do some examples on the next page, but to make adjectives plural, we add an S after the vowel, or an ES after the consonant. This is just like when we learn to make nouns plural, but we're going to do the same thing for adjectives. So we have some examples down here that we'll work with. La hamburguesa es sabrosa. Remember that the H is going to be silent in Spanish when it starts a word. So la hamburguesa, and what we're saying here is the hamburger is tasty or delicious. So we're going to need to think about several things when we make the sentence plural. First of all, we'll change the article to be plural, so las. Then we're going to need to make hamburguesa plural. Because it ends in a vowel, all we have to do is add a S. Las hamburguesas. Then we'll use the they form of es, son. And we'll need to also make sure that our adjective agrees with our new noun. So because it's feminine and plural, we'll make sure that sabrosa is feminine and plural. Las hamburguesas son sabrosas. Let's do one more. This sentence says, the cake is very popular. So if we want to make this plural, we'll need to say the cakes are very popular. We'll start with the article. Los, right? L changes to los. And then pastel ends in a consonant. So we're going to add an ES. Los pasteles. We'll change that to son. Muy, that can stay the same. And then popular ends in a consonant. Oops. So we will go ahead and add our ES to the end of that to make sure that it agrees with pasteles. Los pasteles son muy populares. When an adjective describes a group that includes both masculine and feminine nouns, we will use the masculine, that's not a very good U, the masculine plural form. So here's an example sentence for you. La lechuga, las zanahorias y los tomates son buenos para la salud. Here we have the lettuce, the carrots, and the tomatoes. Now the lettuce is feminine, the carrots is feminine, and tomatoes are masculine. So what we're going to do is say they are good for one's health. Good is our adjective, and we're going to make sure it ends in a masculine plural form because one of the things in our list was masculine. Remember, we talked about this when we were describing subject pronouns, that even if there's one boy in the group, we'll use the masculine form because men are dominant in Spanish. And this is true kind of both of the language and the culture. There's something called machismo, which is like men are the ones who seem powerful. Don't forget that the singular form of mucho means much or a lot, but that the plural form muchos or muchas means many. This is much like what we would do in English. We would say a lot of water, but we would say, or much, I have so much water, but I have so many glasses of water. We wouldn't say I have so much glasses of water or so many water. So it's the same in Spanish. So here we have no como mucha carne. I don't eat much meat or a lot of meat. I'll go ahead and write that in. Pero como muchas verduras. But I eat many vegetables. Go ahead and add that rule to your notes, please, and that's the last thing we have for today before we finish up by answering our big question. So the main question that we started with when we started this lesson is, how do we describe plural nouns? And we're going to use adjectives that agree in number and gender. You will hear me say this so many times throughout Spanish 1 and Spanish 2 and beyond that you will probably get sick of it. So I'm going to recommend that you just get to know that really well right now, that they must agree in number and in gender. And you'll thank yourself later. Thanks for listening today, guys. As always, if you have any questions, please go ahead and write those down on your paper right now so that you don't forget to ask them when we get back to the classroom.